Hey there, I'm George Toby, photographer, filmmaker, entrepreneur, and fellow creative to many of you, and welcome to Coffee and Creatives. This podcast is for coffee drinkers and creative thinkers, those who love to enjoy a good cup of coffee as well as great conversation. Each week, I sit down with artists, entrepreneurs, and makers to talk about the real creative process, what inspires them, what challenges them, and what keeps them going. So if you're into creativity, coffee, and honest conversation, come and hang out with us on Coffee and Creatives. Thanks for joining us here on Coffee and Creatives again. This week we have probably one of my favorite guests, but honestly, I say that every episode. So let's welcome Judah Bondy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming,
I'm
man.
Excited.
And
yeah, for sure.
from what I know, as us being friends, you're not a big coffee drinker.
No, like a negative coffee drinker.
This is going to be interesting. So we have, this is some Kicking Horse coffee for those who are big coffee drinkers. So just
what does that mean?
Like big coffee drinkers or
kicking horse?
It's like it's like the name of like the coffee company is called Kicking Horse.
Oh, okay.
And I believe this is it's called Ass.
Oh, so kicking.
Yeah.
ass.
So yeah, pretty much. So I mean, let's go for it. Give it a try and see what you think. I mean, I know I'm gonna love it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's go.
Yeah. I mean,
I feel like this is more bitter than I was expecting.
yeah. That also could be like my beans could be a little old, so could definitely play into.
I was
that
tasting
little
that
more bitter taste.
No, just kidding. I have no idea. You could tell me these were new beans, old beans. I believe you,
exactly.
no matter what you say.
Before we go any further, why don't you just give me a little info on who you are and like what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Judah. Hello, George. I am on I lead some creative video and creative photo teams at Base Church. So previously I was working at Koinonia, making videos there, and then I was also doing some freelance. So I did like some weddings, freelance video, and then I transitioned to Koinonia merged with another church, and now I lead the video and photo teams, which has been a lot of fun of like learning how to lead people rather than just like make content.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely like a hard side of things is like both elements, right? It's not just you yourself as a creative in your cave anymore. But like actually doing it with other people, right?
We're
kind of going to jump into the topic of like editing itself and like post-production and kind of like what that looks like. And I always thought that you would be the perfect person for this because from my perspective, you're probably one of the best editors that I have seen or come across.
Oh shoot!
So
I gotta lock it.
So I think one of the things I wanted to like touch on or kind of like bring up in this is like what about like the editing process makes it like is so important, right? Because I think often sometimes the editing process, like the post production, gets really underrated, and there's a lot of focus sometimes on just like getting the right shots and like kind of actually shooting. But as I said, like I think you do a phenomenal job at like post-production editing. So like why is that so important? Like why does that make the story of a video or of a wedding video or any really type of project, why is post-production like so important in that?
Yeah, I think my mind goes a few different places, but ultimately, I think you hold so much power. So much power. I think like you can control like so many things, like the pacing of an edit, right? So it's like you can, especially when you're bringing in like music and stuff like that, it's like music will change so much of the tone, so much. You know, you can have the exact same edit and exactly. So it's like you can have the exact same edit and then just like switch up the music a little bit, and it's a whole new thing. And I mean, that's why I feel like I see all these memes where it's like, oh, we finished off a video, and the client being like, can you change the song?
Yeah, right.
But it's like, I think it's one of those things where you just have so much control when it comes to, even if you change like how fast you're cutting between these different shots, like that'll give such a different feeling. You know, in an action scene, I'm thinking through like, are you like right on hit when someone like hits? Are you like switching the angle, or are you like, okay, doing like a one take? And it's like different things. It's like, are you trying to bring people into like, oh, I'm right there, like watching this fight scene? Because even thinking through like, I don't know, have you seen Daredevil before?
I haven't. I actually haven't watched it.
It's all good.
Just walk off the podcast right there.
Because I love it. They do like once per season. I haven't watched the new stuff, but in the old seasons, like around once per season, they were doing this thing where it's like they'll have just like a one take type action scene, and it was like so interesting because that goes so against like a lot of editors do, where it's just like, you know, like cutting all the time and like switching between different angles when hits are happening, and it was just like, I thought it was really cool because it allowed you to really like focus in and like see what's happening, rather than like, and kind of puts the spotlight on the stunt stuntman, stunt woman.
Yeah, I feel like
know?
there's so many, like, I was just thinking the other little while ago, we were watching Smile. It's like a horror, and the first one I thought, like, horror wise, I didn't think it was a very good horror film, but like cinematography wise and like the editing in it, they took so many like components that you would, because our minds have been so set to like what we typically see in movies. Like if we're thinking of like a scene where somebody is answering a door, it's a very typical like over the shoulder kind of shot of each person from each side of the door. And maybe there's like a wide shot from inside or outside. But they had one scene in the movie where she went to open the door, and it was literally a shot from like across the other side of the house.
Right.
And it was just panning in towards them as they were having this conversation from across the room. So it was like, it was almost like the camera was coming through the different rooms, and then it started turning.
Yeah.
And it was just like adding this element to where I watched it and I was like, this is like turning in my stomach, because you're so used to something that I was just like,
that's really amazing. Cool, because I think that plays to a few things where it's like, this is a little bit more on like the framing and stuff side, but then it's like you have certain angles that, you know, provide different feelings. So then it's like a Dutch angle, which is like that diagonal angle. Like that's what it gives. It's like that uneasy feeling. So that's cool. They kind of were like, hey, this is our goal. And then what we're going to do to, you know, meet that goal is we're going to have our shot turn into the angle that gives that feeling. But also I think, so was that like, it was like not much cutting, just like
no, it was one
moving.
straight shot the whole time.
So I love that, because then it really starts to build like tension, right? Where it's like, where it's like, oh, okay, we're moving. Yeah. Oh, like we're still moving. It's kind of uncomfortable, you know, like, oh, so I think that's really cool.
Yeah, that was great. And so kind of like what you had mentioned about like the storytelling aspect and how that becomes it. Like how does editing function like as a form of storytelling? Because I think storytelling in a video, like if we're thinking of like wedding videography or really any type of like videography, like editing is such like a key component. But typically I would say like a lot of your storytelling can come from while you're shooting, like your storyboard leading up to it. If we're thinking maybe you don't have a storyboard for a wedding day, but if you're shooting something else. But how would like you see editing as like a large function as a part of telling a story?
Yeah, well, I think stories are interesting because there's stories like all around us, truly. It was funny. I was just talking to my team about this the other week, but it's just like, literally take anything. There's a story behind it. You know, take this couch, it was made somewhere, whatever. And that doesn't mean that it's a good story, but everything has a story. So when it comes to editing, I think there is a lot of like, even when it comes to video itself, it's like, I think there is a lot of, you can go into, even when you're doing run and gun stuff, you can go in with a plan of like, hey, what's the story ahead of time? When it's like, I'm looking at wedding, hey, like, what's the story of this wedding? I'm not going to know all the details and stuff, but I can plan. It's like, okay, I mean, there's going to be two people coming together and, you know, getting married. Yeah, exactly. They're going to be like probably coming down the altar or whatever. It's like, what shots do I want to convey? Maybe I want like some emotion of the groom's face, of like the reaction. And it's like, so you can do some of that, like you're saying, in the pre-production with like the shot lists and stuff. But when it comes to like editing, storytelling within editing, I think a lot of times the process I'll use is like, just like pull selects first, which I find is really helpful, is just like really quickly skimming through all my footage and just like choosing the best moments. And while I'm doing that, thinking through like, which parts make sense to tell this story. So it's like, then if I have a soundbite that's like, oh, like I can hear like this soundbite is going to work really well as like an ending piece. Then it's like, you know.
Yeah, that kind of like touches perfectly to what I was thinking next. Because what I'm always thinking in that process is like, what do I cut? Like, what do I cut versus what I keep? So like, what's your what's your kind of like your mindset as you're processing and going through that footage? And like, what do you kind of think of as your like, what's your like criteria as you're kind of going through? Because I find for myself when I'm going through that, it's always so hard for me because I typically shoot exactly what I need on a wedding day. I show up, I know the shots I need and what I want. And then I get a couple extra from that. Obviously, if I see like some really cool moments, I'll capture that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been a hard thing to determine like what do I actually keep versus what I cut. So like, what's like your process and like how you determine that?
Yeah, I think so. My personal opinion is that there's a lot of things are a lot less critical to the story than we think.
Yeah, right.
So what I've found is like I'll build out my core story and it's like, oh, this is my core story. And then it's like, oh, actually I could probably cut out half of it still and it still tell the same story.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like I think really dialing down to like going through it's like, okay, building out the core story and then like even doing a couple passes, it's like, oh, okay, is this actually like necessary? Whether that's repetition or whether that's something where it's like, I actually don't need to include this piece because this is something that like is something that people can figure out. Sometimes that's actually better, right? Where it's like letting people. He knows.
We got Phoebe for those of you who can see, and she's gonna be a common guest. It looks like she's trying to jump right up on the couch with us here. If she does, I guess we'll let her. But she may or may not.
She's tempted.
She's tempted if she decides. So. Yeah, just kind of I'm flowing through that. I think that's a perfect point. I was also thinking about like when it comes to I know we're talking wedding where typically the same person is shooting as the same person editing. So you can kind of flow that whole storytelling to, you know, you're shooting what you want. When you go to the edit, you kind of already know like what you want to accomplish and what you want to use. But let's say you're like working with like a creator and an editor. So say your creator is like your person running your production and you're getting footage from somebody else. How would you like see that relationship between like how would you see that working in a way that you can create the end goal of this story being the same thing? Because you being the editor, but you're receiving something that maybe you didn't put vision into, right? So what's like what's kind of your mindset when you get that or when you're working with somebody like that?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think that is something that's like it's something that you have to learn to manage where it's like with creatives, I feel like there's always like everyone has their own creative eye.
Right. Yeah.
Good or bad. I'm just kidding. But you know, so like I think when it comes down to it, when you're, you know, making something for a client, you're making something for an organization, a lot of times it has its own branding. They have their own creative vision.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I support that and like hold that, but also stay true to like, you know, a lot of times why people have hired you is because like they've seen your work and they've like what you're doing, you know?
Exactly.
So it's like, it's an interesting balance. So I think for me, it's like clear communication where it's like, being upfront with like, hey, what is the story that you're trying to tell? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? What are you trying to communicate to your audience? And make sure you're clear on that. Because like different people will give different amounts, like different clients will give different amounts of creative freedom. So if you can, but if that stuff is key, it's like, hey, what are you actually trying to communicate? And that's what you need to know. And then it's like, you can communicate by making like storyboards and stuff like, hey, like this is the plan, this is the storyboard, and then present it to them in a nice way. I like to use Milanote for that. I'm a big fan. I promote it to unofficially promote it to everyone I meet. But like making a storyboard and like proposing that and being like, hey, okay, this is what the plan is. And just, so I would just say like communication is key throughout like the whole process, pre-production.
Yeah. And how would you go about like, let's say you kind of go through that process and you communicate everything. You're like, hey, this is what I think the vision should be. And you like maybe send like an edit, like a first official. What's your first response if you've ever had, or if somebody was to come back to you and say, hey, this is like totally off base from what we had? Like, because I know, for instance, when I was like first getting into it, I was just taking on some projects at like very low, if not getting paid. And I was putting my heart and soul into it. And then I was getting a response that was like, actually, that's not even close to what we were thinking. Can you do all these changes, basically the entire thing different?
Right.
And I'm like, at the time I was like, I'll just do it, right? I need to get some work. I need to get some experience. But like, how would you go about that now? Like having the years of experience that you do, and you have somebody come back to you and was like, hey, actually, I don't like any of what you've done. Not that they don't like the work, but more they don't like the flow or the storyline of something.
Right. I think you can like approach it with curiosity, you know, being like diving in a little bit deeper into like, hey, like what seems to be the issue here of like, hey, is it like, am I not communicating what you're trying to, is it not the right tone? Is it not the right feel? And just like diving into a little bit, because sometimes they won't know of like, hey, like, oh, this just isn't right. But it's like, okay, like that's actually not helpful. like what is actually like, and then so diving into deeper, is it like the tone that's you're having a problem with? Is it not giving you the right feeling?
Yeah.
And then it's like, then can provide some like, some options of like, oh, like I feel like it's the tone that's just like different. It's like, oh, okay, like if we tried to like color grade it differently, this might bring it to this happier feel and less like moody. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
You know, like that type of thing is like getting to the, I would say like getting to the core and like just communicating there rather than sometimes I think at the end of the day, sometimes there are just times where it's like, they're like, no, I want it like this. And you have to know like, and even if you're like, well, that's not how I would do it, I think this is the worst decision in the world.
Right.
They're the client.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you kind of want to meet the client's needs. But I think sometimes we honestly forget like how important like a color grade can be, like how different a storyline can become as soon as it's a different color grade. I mean, even if you have bright, happy music, but you have like a very muty grayscale color, as like, it's not going to come across as happy. It's going to probably come across as like creepy. Yeah, it's horror kind of spooky. Like spooky, right? So I think that's like a great way to look at it, is there's so many different elements that you can change, and not just doing that first perspective of being like either, oh, well, I'm the editor, I know what I'm doing. You're not having that, but you're also like trying to figure out like, hey, like let's break it down step by step and actually figure out what it could be. Yeah,
and just on that, I think like always being teachable,
right?
Like that, like kind of like you mentioned, not just being like, oh, I'm the editor, well, I know what's best. It's like, well, actually the client also might be carrying a lot of vision for like who this is intended for and all this stuff. And like, if once we get to the point of like, oh, I'm not like, okay, I've got it, and it's like, if they don't like it, then they're wrong. It's like all of a sudden you just captured growth. You know, so I think that's a good point to bring up.
So I remember a while ago you were kind of more an Adobe where you started, and then shifted to DaVinci. So what did that kind of like, I'm a big DaVinci editor as well. It's definitely like my favorite. For me, a big like shift, because I started on Adobe as well, was kind of shifting because one, the price at the time. DaVinci is free for any of those listening and want a good editing platform to use. DaVinci all the way. But then a second thing for me was, as soon as I started using it, I found the workflow was just so much more better and so much easier to get used to. I think Adobe and DaVinci, they have a lot of the similar tools, but the way that I found Adobe is like everything was like hidden.
Right.
Like it was like you had to like search to find what you wanted. Where like as DaVinci, for me, that is everything was like right in front of my face. Like everything was right there. All the tabs for each edit, cut, color, audio was all right in front of me. What for you kind of like was a drawing point that made you like want to switch and kind of like do that different direction?
Yeah. So I think I actually started on Final Cut Pro back in the day when it was like, I think it was like $3,000, you know,
most expensive.
That existed. So I think I started on that, and then was on Premiere for a while, and then there was just like a point. I think at the time it was just price, where I was just like, oh well, I can't afford this, and then just like tried the free version of DaVinci, and then actually most of my editing has been, and like learning has been on DaVinci. So I've been on it for like a while now, which it's been cool to learn within that program, and then it's like kind of rose up to be what it is today, which is like, I guess I'm glad I chose that one. But
incredible program.
It is.
I mean, there's so many things that are coming out every year or even every couple months like this, just like such new things that are like just game changers for editors. And just making the process so fast and so smooth. Like a big thing for me that I love is the audio transcript that you can
Oh
do.
yeah. Oh, massive.
Especially for wedding days.
Yeah.
Like, just like, okay, I have all the audio from from speeches or from the bride and groom or from letters they wrote or their vows. And I'm like, I just want to be able to read it as opposed to sitting and listening. So my process for that, which I love, is I'll actually put it all into a doc. I'll transcript it, put it into a doc, send it to Hadley.
Right.
She'll actually read through it because she's just better with words and making things like really well. And she'll basically just delete all the stuff that we don't want. And then just like you bring it back in, you paste it back in, you hit like enter or like run it, and it just cuts out all the footage that you deleted and just keeps in what you wanted. And it's just such an easy way to flow through like that. Even the multicam, especially for stuff like this podcast stuff, like multiple camera views, like the fact that it also has like the auto switching now too, to auto switch to whoever's talking is phenomenal. But what would you when you started using DaVinci, you kind of started like really dialing in, what would you say was something like your favorite features that like made telling a story that much easier in the editing process?
I mean, like, I think some of those things that you mentioned, like the transcript and things like that, where it's like a lot of times, for example, if I want to do like shorts or something, like, and we're shooting a lot of like, there's a lot of spoken content, even just writing down some keywords where it's like, oh, like I hear like, oh, this would be a really good like clip that I can shorten down, and then you write down a couple of keywords, then you could transcribe and you could just search that keyword and like find that spot. So I think stuff like that, like you're saying, multicam editor is so nice. I think having it all like in one program I've loved so much, where you have the tabs at the bottom and switch through like effects or like audio, color, and it's just like I don't have to be ripping to like other programs. And
that's so true,
because I don't know, it's a small thing, but I just really enjoy that it's all in one universal space. You switch and it's still like at that point in your timeline. And I think like some of the process I use to like keep it efficient is like, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I like to pull selects, and then I have key binded, basically changing the clip color to like yellow or to like orange. So like I'm just, as I'm pulling selects, my selects time, I'm quickly going through and then just pulling the different segments, and then it's like, oh, if this is like a normal clip, if it's a bad clip, I delete it. If it's like if it's like a normal, it's like, oh, it's not bad, I'll keep it as like the default color. If it's like good, I'll make it yellow, and if it's like oh, I definitely should use this, make it orange. Because then when after I'm done my selects, it's like I know I have like all my sections of like, oh, this is like the best of the best. And then it's like, oh, I need more of this section. I can go back and like see, oh, okay, I'll go to the yellow clips if I don't have any more orange ones left. But I think there's just like a lot of efficiency that's been being built in nowadays to these programs, which is nice because it really allows you to focus on just like the creative side of things. Just because a lot of times I feel like we run out of time on these creative projects, you know? So then it's like,
and like with that, and with all these new things coming into like DaVinci and new ways to edit and kind of speed up the process, how do you like often discover new creative directions, right? Because I feel like sometimes we're like, so for myself, I just got into such a rhythm of like the same thing over and over, and it was like I found something that worked. I found like an algorithm that worked with how I edit, do the same thing every time, still pumped out beautiful films, beautiful stuff for weddings. But in my mind, people, like, I saw it as like, oh, I'm just doing the same thing every time. I'm doing my same steps that I follow to get a film done. But it's like, I want to be able to, and a big part of like what this podcast is me kind of rediscovering my initial passion for like video and film and kind of the creative world. And through that, kind of getting back to new things and learning new things and kind of rediscovering new things. And so like, how would you say that through your editing process, how often would you like discover new creative ways like during that editing process?
That's a great question. I think for me, I've found that it's important to fight for space to create without limits, even outside of like edits, where it's like actually finding, because again, like clients will have that, there's going to be some limitations. I'm not saying that we should never experiment or try new things within like edits for paid projects, but I would say just like if there's a space, like even if that's for like socials, my own personal socials, just for fun or whatever, creating space where it's like, okay, no, I know that I can try whatever I want and there's like no consequences of like, you know, like, oh, someone's like expecting something that can be handed off to a client. It just gives me so much more room to be like, okay, without limits, where can I go creatively? And I found that is what really like sparks like, oh, now I know I can like pull this idea from all these different personal random projects I've done, pull that into this other paid project, because I know that I've tested it, I know that it works, or I know like I know it doesn't work, or I know a modification of it, you know, where it's like, it just gets you out of the box a little bit, thinking outside of the box. And I think that's been helpful when it comes to like translating into like client work of like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I don't have to just stick to these like parameters. You know, so I think it gives you like confidence as well going into like client work.
That is such a good way to describe that. I think that's like so well said. Just like your mindset can really affect kind of like how you do it, and the thing of like thinking outside of the box and thinking of like different elements, and how sometimes you could like learn something in like a corporate editing sense and you can take that into something like a wedding film, like, or shift things around. And I think that is exactly like what I was kind of doing the opposite of, which is just like, oh, this is a corporate video, this is how it gets edited, this is a wedding film, this is how it gets done, instead of being like, how can I actually incorporate different things? And I think as a creative, we want to be constantly evolving in these ways and doing things out of the ordinary. Right.
Totally. And like, I'll just say quick, for me, like, that was like when everything shut down, I went into just like create mode. I just went like on socials, just like went ham. And that was like MySpace is like, and it's like, you look back now and it's like, oh, like, so many of the videos, it's like there's like some great stuff and there's a lot of like cringy stuff, and I'm like, I don't really care, because it like grew me so much. Like that, I would say that was the period where I learned the most in like my editing, was just like making dumb stuff for socials.
And like in that, like, what kind of mindset or skills do you think are like essential for editing? Like, I think it can be one thing to like go out and shoot and kind of have that creative side, but I think it takes a whole nother set of skills and mindset to kind of dive into an editing sense. Like, so what would you suggest or recommend would be like good skills or like a good mindset to have, like when you're in that editing mode?
Patience.
Yes, agreed.
Because
waiting for the idea, waiting for the spark.
I think also when like things will go wrong sometimes, and that can be very frustrating. Sometimes it's not even your fault. Like sometimes it's just technology isn't working, and it's like so frustrating. But I think having that patience is keeping a cool mind is helpful. I think like efficiency again. So I would say like it's actual like really helpful skill is like thinking through how can I do this as efficient as possible in terms of thinking through like, because again, I think that provides more space for creativity. So things like hotkeys, right? Where it's like always dialing. It's like, okay, do I need to move my hand from my mouse to my keyboard? No, that's a no. You know, but it's like, oh, big fan of, have you used the Logitech, their mouse? What is it? The Master, I'm blanking on what it is. The 3X Master or something like that. I honestly haven't gotten MX into Master like 3, I think.
Crazy.
Oh,
like
dude.
Mouse features. I do have like this new little, I mean, you can see it. You guys can't see it. Anybody's listening or watching. But I have like this little keypad. It's got 9 keys on it. And I just have it set for video editing or photo editing. And it has all my shortcuts on it. Cut, delete, paste, like all of these all these different features. So literally I'm like, my hand is basically there and my mouse, and that's it.
Yeah, right.
Like, and it's absolutely amazing. And it just like the workflow is so much faster, because I'm like, because at first I was like on the keyboard, right? So you're like trying to find everything on the keyboard. But when you get used to just a little pad that has 6 keys, and it's like, I don't even have them labeled. It's just, I just know now. At first it was like a little slow, but now it's like, and I'm like, wow, how am I working? Why was I not doing this before? And I think sometimes we get that info from people, and they're like, hey, I recommend you do this, you should do this. But then you always think of like the money side of things, especially when you're like a creator who's trying to like make it as your living, or like as your income. You're always trying to think of like, oh, like, is it like balancing out, like, is buying a piece of gear to make my workflow efficient? Is that going to help me? Like, is that actually going to, like, you know, does it make sense to buy that? even though it's going to kind of limit the amount of money that I have incoming. So you're
Right.
always trying to like balance that. And I've always found like a difficulty with that because I'm
Right.
a gear person. I'm going to Hadley all the time.
Yeah.
And like, yo, check out this new piece of gear. We have
Right.
to get this. It's going to make our weddings better. Like,
Yeah.
this is going to make my editing better. This is
Yeah.
going to make this better.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's
I need a
always that
fisheye
new
lens.
gear. Yeah. And so I feel like sometimes we have to like balance like what we have
Yeah.
and utilizing it to the max
Totally.
of our abilities.
Yeah.
Would you have like a scenario that like you had something that you wanted to either upgrade or get something to be more efficient, but you were like, no, I need to like utilize this to the max capacity that it can be used for?
I have some things that I've bought to be efficient and have not been useful.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay, so what's that like? Yeah.
So that's not good. That's what it's like.
Yeah.
But even things like I think I bought like the DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor.
Oh yeah.
Or like it came with it was like a really cheap with like the purchase of something that I was already buying. So we ended up getting it, and it was just like I think it's one of those things where it has a specific purpose, and when I was using it, it just like I was like, oh, like this is almost felt a little bit more niche.
Yeah.
Or same with like something like the DaVinci Resolve, like they have like the coloring wheels where it's like a physical unit which is like, oh, that'd be so nice to have. But I think like you're saying, it's like it is a balance of like there's an endless amount of gear, and is this actually gonna like is the ROI on this actually gonna be helpful for like
for sure
for me of where I'm at. And that's one where it's like I would love it, but like no, right now it's not gonna be. If you're like a full-time colorist, it's like for sure. Or if you just have the extra cash you want to drop, like go for it. But I think there is something there to like, hey, being intentional with like, am I actually using what I have to its potential? Because I think we oftentimes put a lot of limitations on ourselves that are like not really that helpful, where it's like, oh, actually I'm not really limited by this, I just think I am. And it's like exactly. Where it's like whether that's gear, it's like camera, it's like oh, okay, I don't have this new camera that does all this stuff and shoots open gate and all this stuff.
Make a good product,
and it's like no, I think you can. It just might take some more effort, or if anything, it just requires more creativity, because a lot of times I do think that limitations do breed creativity to some capacities, right? So it's like, okay, I'm limited by what I'm shooting with. I'm limited by whatever. It's like, okay, how can I get around that? So and it brings out a little bit of creativity that way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times where like I'm like I've done this before, and it's where I'm like, oh, like I need the newest gear. I need the newest I need the newest mic for my camera so I get the best audio. But I think sometimes like I see sometimes in like the creative industry, a lot of people who like will just go and buy like the newest thing and the best thing, and then it's like, oh, they're a pro now. No, not really how it works. But it's like I think you have to really utilize like, well, the first camera that I ever started working on and shooting on was like the Canon Rebel, like one of the first Rebels that ever came out. But to where like now I'm sometimes like going back to limitations to refocus my creativity on something. Like I was just telling you, one of the new cameras that we're actually using, the main one for this one is Canon's like newly released beautiful, absolutely beautiful camera, the Canon PowerShot V1, which is like a very vlog camera, but it's just like, it almost like limits. I was shooting with it last weekend, and it just almost limits your abilities, but it makes you get more creative, because you have to start to think. You're like, all I have is 17 to 55 millimeters. That's it. I don't have a viewfinder. It's only a screen. Like you have limited exposure and everything on it. You're just like, what do I do? So then I was instantly like, oh no, if I do this and shift this around and do this, I can make it all work. And you're like trying to frame like a shot, and you're like, I can't get close enough, can't get far enough away. It's like, no, I physically have to move. And then as soon as you like do that element of physically moving, you're like, now like, oh, I'm actually seeing something different, and you're kind of seeing those different elements. So it's been incredible. So I highly recommend anybody, like if you are kind of stuck in like, you feel like your gear is holding you back, maybe like re-look at what your gear is actually doing for you. And you'll actually realize how much you can utilize. I mean, I always had Tim tell me all the time, shout out to Tim, I would always go to him and be like, hey, like, I need a new piece of gear. What do you think? And he'd be like, no, you don't.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Right.
utilize what you have until you absolutely cannot use it anymore.
Yeah.
Because if all we're doing is just buying the newest piece of gear with time, like, we're not really actually learning anything about our gear or about our own abilities, really. We're just letting the gear do the work.
Totally.
Instead of us utilizing the gear to do the work.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, gear's expensive, stories are free. You know?
Yeah,
You know?
and that's so true. I'd rather a good story. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today,
Oh,
man.
my pleasure. That was fun, man.
Yeah, this was awesome.
This is
Hopefully,
good coffee, too.
I'm surprised. I'm glad
I'm
you liked it
surprised,
too. So hopefully we'll see you back here in the future.
I love to be back. Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining, and hope to see you on the next one. Thank you for joining us today on Coffee and Creatives. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.